All right, we're recording.
Awesome. So this is our sports technology final presentation. I'm Seth Owings.
And I am Jason Schob.
And I'm Alvin Nyangau.
Awesome. So we'll jump into it with major advancements in sports technology. So technology has impacted sports in basically every facet that you could imagine, starting with analytics, which went from being some kind of crazy idea to an essential department within every sports program, to new training methods that are not only creating better athletes, but more efficient athletes who are able to play for longer. Mental training that is helping athletes strengthen their brain and strengthen their ability to perform under immense pressure that they feel when they're at the height of competitive athletics, as well as impacting the fan experience, whether that's at home with, new TVs and new streaming platforms to watch the games on, at the sports bar with new ways to enjoy content, and, at the stadium, kind of creating an experience that everybody can enjoy, from the diehard fan all the way down to, the casual social goer. But I think, wearable technology is also something that technology has really impacted, that is really playing a large part in what athletes and what teams are doing. So one of the biggest wearable technologies out there right now are compression shirts with a GPS and a bio module that track athletes during games and practice. These track 6 main inputs, and those are an athlete's heart rate, breathing rate, heart rate variability, posture, and impact. And then from these 6 inputs, coaches are able to track 20 secondary parameters, which are listed here. And the main thing that this really benefits is it allows coaches to kind of see the fatigue and, all the things a player's body is feeling during the practice week leading up to competition, so that when it does become competition day, coaches can make sure that they planned out the weekly practices so that when they are ready to compete, they are 100%, they are ready to go. As well as being able to see a player's progress, maybe from the beginning of preseason to hitting peak fitness, so that when the games do start coming, their bodies are ready to handle the amount of stuff their bodies have to go through for these competitions. So moving forward from there, technology in stadiums. So technology is being added to stadiums to combat technology that is making fans stay at home to watch sporting events. So there's a lot of fans out there who maybe aren't diehard fans and don't want to spend the amount of money it takes to go to a live game, or they don't want to go with the hassle of traffic and trying to, get around a stadium that's potentially filled up to 100,000 fans. And so stadiums are trying to find things to work around that to get more fans to these games. And technology is a big part of what they're doing. So technology is being used to streamline processes within the stadium using self-checkout kiosks. So these are used at a lot of the concession stands these days, so that people don't have to wait in such long lines just to place their orders and get their foods. They are also using fingerprint scanning. This is a newer thing that stadiums are beginning to use. It is erasing paper tickets, and it's also trying to get rid of, trying to get tickets up on your phone, which can sometimes cause a delay. So by using fingerprints, fans can get into the stadium without having to worry about carrying anything on them in terms of getting in. And they can also use it to pay at the self-checkout kiosks. By putting their fingerprint on there, it just charges their account, just to try to streamline that whole process. As well as new stadiums are creating apps with information on empty parking lots, the shortest lines, and the closest bathrooms. So one of the newest stadiums out there that is really employing all these new things is the Tottenham Hotspur's new stadium. So this stadium opened April 3rd, 2019. And it has a lot of different things in it to kind of attract that more social fan who kind of just wants to go for, the social aspect, not necessarily as much to watch the games. So to help with that, they've got over 1,000 square feet of video boards all throughout the stadium, the cashless payment system, such as the fingerprint scanning, like we mentioned. They've also got 1,600 Wi-Fi hotspots throughout the whole stadium. And then with that, they have an app that uses Bluetooth to direct people to the closest bathrooms, bars, and restaurants which the stadium is full of. And it's also has the longest bar in Europe currently, sitting at 65 feet. So the stadium has really created an atmosphere where anybody can go to enjoy and kind of make it more than just going to a sporting event, which is ultimately going to attract more fans. And I couldn't have done that without the use of technology. So then moving forward, we've got marketing and media. Today, a lot of marketing is done on social media platforms. These platforms like Twitter and Instagram, not only do fans get to keep up with the team pages, but the platforms can also be used to show different ads. So one of the really important parts of this is that the teams get immediate feedback from the fans on whether or not they liked the content in the media and the marketing that's coming out, because fans are always commenting, liking, retweeting on all these posts. And so the marketing teams using this technology are able to get immediate feedback and kind of know what works moving forward to get rid of maybe ads or different tweets and photos that fans aren't liking. It also gives fans instant access to highlights and news about the team. Fans can access this stuff from their phone basically almost anywhere in the world, just really allowing teams to connect with fans like never before. And it also allows teams to advertise, ticket sales, endorsements, and other events being held by the team or the stadium. So these kind of endorsements, they could be like Dollar Dog Nights or the Tinder Nights or different events like concerts that, the team and the stadium are trying to sell tickets for. And it also allows the team to show the community, show the world, everybody on these platforms, all the community service they're doing, and kind of shed the team, in a good light, and talk about all the charities they support, or the different things their players are doing in the community, just to overall give the team a better look, which will attract more fans with the use of technology. And then moving forward, we've got third venues. So a third venue is a location for fans to watch sports that is not at home or in the stadium. So think your sports bars or your Jumbotrons simulcast. So these Jumbotrons, these are the areas where teams or stadiums are putting out big boards for fans to kind of watch games on a public location. You see these a lot used during the World Cup or basically any major sporting event where the fans are unable to attend the game. So for example, the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2016, when they were able to win the 2016 NBA championship, they played the game in California, but all the fans in Cleveland gathered at a giant Jumbotron to watch the game outside the stadium. And so this is just another example of a third venue. The appeal for these third venues is that fans can get a stadium feel without stadium prices. Going to games, especially professional games, is extremely pricey. And so these third venues kind of give you that atmosphere of sitting with other fans and cheering loudly while saving you some money. So there's a lot of potential technological upgrades for these locations, just like the 50-inch flat screen was a huge upgrade at first. There's different sports bars and things are trying different things out, such as augmented reality, interactive tabletop technology, holographic replays, and then 3D and 4D displays. So these venues will need to continually evolve like stadiums to keep fans coming to their locations. Sports bars are an extremely popular location for people to go during games, and there's a bunch of different choices for fans to choose from. So if these places want to attempt to attract more fans, they're going to have to keep a leg up on all the other sports bars and other third venues out there to keep the fans coming in.
All right, so moving on, I have the athlete and technology. So technological advancements have been used to enhance lives for years, but recently sports and athletes in particular have started using these advancements to advance themselves as athletes as well. And so the two main categories where technological advancements have improved are with the training aspect and developing athletes with training, but also enhancing the in-game performance. And so a couple examples of each for improved training. First off, there's been a recent surge when athletes started using technology. At first, it was more in-game performance, but recently there's been a surge in popularity with athletes using technology to develop training because there's so much parity between athletes nowadays. Everyone's trying to get whatever advantage that they can to make the difference between potentially winning and losing games or between millions of dollars. So there's a major jump with improved training with technology. And one of those training mechanisms is their movement analysis systems. And so one example they talked about was a golf swing, and there are video analysis systems that will analyze your golf swing and determine where you need to make corrections, what you need to change with your golf swing to make it perfect. That also goes to baseball pitching, baseball swings, tennis swings, and even like running with running technique, whether it's the tilt, your angle, your stride length, your force. There are different things that you can work on to try to make yourself a better athlete through the training aspect with movement analysis. Another improved training technological advancement is the mental training. And we watched the video with the volleyball player, Carrie Walsh Jennings, and she talked about how she was trying to develop her mind to become a better athlete. She talked about how her mind was failing, and how basically she was trying to help control her brain waves so her body would be getting older, but her enhancement of mental capacity would help her perform at a higher level and be an elite athlete still. And then for end game performance, there are two different things. The one's ethos apparel, and basically it's sort of what Seth talked about with having the transmitters in equipment or in the clothes that the people wear. But one thing that makes it a little bit different, this company was really focusing on muscle exertion. So basically, if your legs are getting tired in a soccer game, you would be able to, the coach would know, pull them out, let their legs recover a little bit, and then they would know when to pull them in. So that's a benefit because the coach knows when to pull them out and when to put it back in, and then it helps the athlete perform at a peak level at all times. And the other one it's called Halo Sport Headband. And basically the Halo Sport Headband was created, and it stimulates the primary motor cortex, and the primary motor cortex controls your body. And that helps all of the neurons fire together, and this helps your brain better control your muscles that are needed in the activity. So when your brain can control your muscles better, you naturally perform at a higher level. And so basically what athletes are doing is they're using that Halo Sport Headband right before the game starts to make sure all the neurons are firing together. So another aspect where technology has changed sports is with sponsorship and advertising. And so one thing that's happened since 2007, there has been a decrease in live game attendance from sports in general. But there's been a dramatic increase with live stream and TV broadcast numbers. So as a whole. So one thing that sports organizations are doing to compensate for that loss of revenue is they're increasing advertising space in their stadium, and they're strategically placing signs so fans are able to view those in game while the games are actually going on. And one thing that came to mind was the score tables at basketball or the backstop of baseball game. And there are a couple pictures there. The one up top is a baseball game from the 1970s or 80s, and there was no advertising behind the backstop. But then if you look at present day baseball, there are multiple advertisements, and those are actually rotating. They'll change those either during each inning or each game, depending on how much money those businesses put forward. And that helps generate more revenue for the businesses or for the sports organizations. And it's a lot easier to change them out when they're electronic. Another thing with sponsorship and advertising is businesses are using digital analytics to determine what the fans want and when they want it. So and I think Seth touched on this as well, but coupons and promotional games, the recent studies show that over 60% of fans will give up their contact information for coupons or something promotional at a sporting event. And so companies are realizing this, and they're doing a lot of promotional events in order to get the fans' contact information to try to sell products later on down the road. And so that's a big reason why you see so many promotional events at sporting events. So, and the other thing is the Super Bowl and just advertising in general. And so for example, businesses are advertising, they're researching with digital analytics on how much advertisements of commercials are generating for them. And so the average cost for a 30-second ad this past year in the Super Bowl was $5.25 million. which is a lot of money, but obviously the numbers and the analytics show that it's worth it to pay that money to get their name out there. Another category that technology is changing the sports world is with teams and leagues. And with teams and leagues, it's sort of evolved over time. And I think it started in 1994 with NFL Sunday Ticket. And the NFL decided to not just before they broadcasted 3 to 4 games per weekend of NFL games. They created NFL Sunday Ticket, so fans would be able to watch any game that's played throughout the weekend, any NFL game. And they worked with DirecTV, and they still have it. Since that time, other leagues have seen the success, and they've duplicated the system. And so basically every major league offers a package to watch every sporting event that's played in the year. Since that time, it's evolved, and like we talked about, streaming has become much more popular. And now there are a lot of organizations and a lot of companies that stream the games. They offer streaming availability. And then from there, NBA TV sort of took it to another step, and they started the NBA TV channel. And instead of just broadcasting the games, they covered NBA, either commentary, previous highlights, previous games, classics, whatever it would be. But they basically covered NBA 24 hours a day, every day of the year. So they sort of set that trend for full-time television stations just dedicated to their sport. Then it transferred and it went down to the college level, and the Big Ten Network was the first college league or college conference to sort of create their own television station. And so they created it to try to generate some extra revenue and also generate some interest for the teams in their conference. And with that, the one benefit with college, the Big Ten Network compared to the NFL and NBA and MLB leagues having their own channel, is the Big Ten Network had no off season. And that was one of the major benefits, is they would have fall sports in the fall, winter sports, and then spring sports. And they wouldn't really have a downtime. They would be able to show live sports at all times. Since then, other conferences have followed the same business model, and basically every major conference now in college sports has it. And just like the professional level, they're using streaming options as well. And then Texas Longhorns took it to another level, and they decided having a Big Ten network wasn't good, or a Big 12 network wasn't good enough for them. They decided to have their own personal network with just their school. And so when they first created this, they had a lot of behind the scenes look, and it's still going on today. They had a lot of behind the scenes look with whether it's weekly interviews with their coaches of all their sports, interviews with famous alumni, interviews with current players, and it gave the fans a behind the scenes look. And I remember when it first came out, it was a major recruiting advantage because it was televised nationwide, and people were able to get an inside look at Texas Longhorn sports, regardless of where you're located in the country. And then the last part I have is the fan, and that's played a huge factor with technology. And so social media, which you talked about earlier, has made a huge impact with the fan and the influence it's played. So, like for example, it gives the fans a platform to discuss sports. And anytime fans are able to discuss sports back and forth, it generates interest, and it gives a little bit of a buzz, and it encourages fans to watch the sporting event when they're talking about it online. And then teams have created social media accounts as well, and they're able to disseminate a lot of information and give behind-the-scenes looks, which makes fans feel more included in the process. They have also created the sports organizations and colleges have created apps and websites. And so I'm a Steelers fan, for example, and I've been getting nonstop updates from behind-the-scenes interviews with the players they've drafted and so forth. And that just really helps generate interest and keeps fans involved with their sports team. And then the other part with the fan, where it's the amount of games broadcast. And when sports were originally broadcast, you might have had 2 or 3 per weekend, and you had to watch it live. And today you can either TiVo it and record it. You can watch it on demand later. You can watch it on YouTube. or you can stream it if you're not at your house. And like we talked about, streaming so popular, you can watch it wherever you are, and that helps busy people with busy lifestyles stay up to date with sports and their favorite sports teams.
Perfect. Esports. It's one of the fastest growing markets in the world right now. It's actually crazy because it's become $1 billion business when it comes to culture shifts, when it comes to going outside all the time to sitting at home and now playing video games. One article I read was about NBC News, an interview with a high school kid and his parents, talking about the difference between the dynamic shift of having to go outside, and especially older generation parents were like, that's kind of a waste of time, to now it's become a way to earn college scholarships or even make money. There was a giant esports competition last year where a 13-year-old ended up winning $1 million off of playing Fortnite. During this article, they talked about the dynamic shift of his parents because he joined a club, and from that club, he eventually in high school, it led to him and his 6 teammates to getting over $400,000 in scholarship money for college at next level. And talking to his parents, I mean, the dynamic shift, he went from his dad being from opposing from him playing video games as this being a waste of time to him actually trying to get his son and holding him accountable to being on his Xbox or PlayStation an hour a day, if not more, just so he can practice and continue to get better at it so he can earn scholarship money. It's one of the craziest things about going on right now is more and more schools are starting to create esports teams. I mean, Upper Iowa has an esports team, and there's more and more leagues that are opening those up, not only because it's cheap to add it, but it's becoming super prominent in today's day. Future expectations, I mean, talking to the Upper Iowa esports coach, one of the things they've kind of expanded from the singular shooting games and stuff like that into more 2K and FIFA and those games where you can actually have teams and operate from that. And I think it's only going to continue to grow in popularity here as the industry continues to go. Moving on, payment and online ticketing. Online services become extremely popular today's day and age, having everything within a click away. As Jason kind of alluded to, with the streaming services and third-party sellers is one of the biggest things that teams have to be able to do right now. Is one of that is how can they market to the consumers at home and how can they get to them, because it's no longer the hand-to-hand, you come in, you wait in line, get a paper physical copy in the mail anymore. It's become there's third-party sellers like StubHub and several others that can sell tickets, resell tickets, especially for season ticket holders. But not only that, when it comes to marketing it, it's become really prominent for every organization to have a mobile application and for them to invest and put money into and have it detailed and be able to collect information through other apps like Facebook or Instagram that are always collecting information of what you're doing, what you're searching. And now they're able to collect that information from them and be able to tailor what they want to market to you through the mobile applications. That's been extremely, extremely beneficial. When I know at North Dakota State University, they were having a really big issue of getting people in the stands. So they started doing mobile applications by giving people an incentive to show up to games. You collect a certain amount of points, you're able to collect this information or get this ticket or get this autograph, something small like that to have people feel more part of the organization of the team. And like the NFL draft, they did for the people who attended and went to go see the NFL draft, they kind of did a Pokemon style thing with their app where you need to walk to certain areas or booths or location to collect these things and give you a chance to get inside and actually be in the draft or get an autograph or picture with such and such. Moving on, companies helping with advancement in sports. Huge football right now is trying to find ways that they're able to limit the contact in practices. Especially because football is such a violent sport. I mean, they've changed so many rules to limit the contact that's happening, and now they've started to put in some tackling dummies. Mobile Virtual Player is a company that has created these massive tackling dummies created with a head coach at Dartmouth and the University of Dartmouth engineers started creating this thing where there's tackling dummies for 50 pounds, about 50, 60 pounds. It has a speed of at least a 40-yard dash of 5.0 flat. These tackling W's, the Pittsburgh Steelers were the first ones to start utilizing these in practice, and they can mimic all the football moves that players would do normally. And if they think it helps to teach and have their players relearn how to tackle nowadays when we have such a small window of areas you can tackle. Next one is Sports VTS. Sports VTS is a branch off of Sports VU. Sports VU is extremely popular right now in the basketball world, especially at the NBA level. It's huge. It's the analytical thing and the analytical side of things. The Warriors are the first organization to really fully invest into it, become a fully analytical-driven organization. With that department, it's multiple cameras that record your games and practices. They're able to record data and accumulate data about how many times you set a screen and how many times you dribble right or left or how many times you do this and that. And they're able to collect all that information spot on, right on the dot. So I'll branch off of that for football is Sports VTS is what they created, the QB sim. Like I said, the virtual players are trying to avoid contact. Well, the number one position they want to avoid contact in practice is the quarterback because they invest so much money as owners. The last thing you want is situations like the Miami Dolphins when they lost their starting quarterback a couple years ago and they had to sign Jay Cutler off the streets because that right there causes a huge issue and ends the season. So quarterback sim is a virtual reality world where your quarterback's able to continue to grow and develop and work on their reads without actually having to be on the football field. It's very beneficial. It's continuing to grow as of right now. It's not just a way for them to get reps, but they're starting to try to figure out ways to use it to evaluate talent with incoming players by putting them through simulations and realizing how they react to certain things and how good they are at seeing the field fully. Moving on, trends in sports. The player empowerment era is kind of what we're living in right now. Some kind of reference LeBron James as the leader of all that. It's this player empowerment area is kind of huge in the sense of players are starting to take accountability and beyond. We're going to do what we feel is in our best interest over taking the long-term contracts or necessarily what's the best of the team interest, the owner's interest. Because of that, it's kind of navigated players into different paths. And one of the biggest things from players, not only when they play, is after they retire, is there's not enough options are available for them to be in the other side of the basketball world, whether it's front office positions, broadcasting, and several other areas of the world. So by the player power era has kind of grown, the NBA and the NFL have also started to do things when it comes to getting players more opportunities out there. One thing that TNT did was players only, a broadcast where it was all former players sitting in a broadcast, and the intention was to get a better insight on the game since they played the game with the broadcast, because everybody is craving for something a little more realistic and somewhere an avenue where you can learn more about the game. So they had some future Hall of Famers and current Hall of Famers come off right after new broadcasts, do play-by-plays and talk and go through sports. Another big trend, women's sports. The growth of women's sports has been incredible over the last decade or so. Specifically, going to WNBA. And the WNBA is a fairly new league in the grand scheme of things. It's only been available for about 20 years or so. Because the WNBA, they only had play in the summer of 34 games. The biggest hot button issue with them is their salary wage and whether they should get paid the same compared to the NBA, which necessarily isn't feasible. But to their new CBA that they just signed, their maximum salary used to be $112,000 for the max player, the best on the team. Now it's $500,000, which is dramatic growth in the sense of there were some of the best players who played in women's basketball and didn't play in the WNBA for the first 2 weeks because they made almost 15 times more overseas playing for the club teams. Some club teams, even like Russia, offered and paid Dani Taurasi. They paid her about $2 million not to play in the WNBA season and rest and wait to come back the next year. It's part of the biggest issue. The overseas market is lots of players like her. She likes to play in the United States because it's in front of her friends and her family. But when it comes to situations, going overseas is where she's going to be able to make her money. because of the new CBA and the new trends, and there's a lot more money being invested into women's sports. It's growing. It's getting better. And because there's more money being invested at the highest level, there's going to be more money put in down at the youth levels and more attention and more better coaching going on at that level.